Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our 52nd.
It is not.
It is. We're almost getting close to my age.
Wow.
Mike and Mike's Off-Air Podcast. Mike Pesto.
And Mike O'Neill right here.
So you're watching on YouTube because we're waving at you. Something brand new we just started this week. You can also not just check out the video on YouTube, but also if you get to my975fm.com, our homepage, you can find the YouTube video right there. You don't have to go searching anywhere. One-stop shopping for you.
We're everywhere.
So the audio is there at my975fm.com. The video is there. Poll question is there. It's a great place to start. Our Facebook page as well. By the way, when you get to our Facebook page, if you haven't done it yet, please do like us on Facebook. That way, we pop up new stuff there. You can always see it first.
We very much appreciate it, and we would be honored if you would check it out.
So, are you been keeping up to tabs with the Olympic Games going on?
I love the Olympics. It's been so great. You were worried about the American medals. I bet you're not worried anymore.
Well, as of this moment, and we have to preface this by we have no idea when you watch this or listen to this, but as of right now, at least this morning when I saw, we've been leading in the medal count since the games began, but we are finally ahead of China when it comes to the gold.
Oh, man, our runners and our swimmers are insane this year. It's just, I mean, it's been so cool. And some first, not so much on the swimming side. I mean, Miss Ledecky is amazing, was always amazing, will always be amazing. She's got golds for days. But some of the runners have just coming right out of right field. It's just been so much fun to watch.
Now, as we're talking, I think his race has already happened. Quincy, and I'm blanking on his last name, the runner who ran for the Giants when he went to COS years ago. He has had his event going for gold. He qualified for the gold medal run. I don't know right now how he did. I posted it up on our Facebook page, but as we're recording this, I don't know. So if anyone knows, if they want to comment on this or reach out to us to let us know, we'll find out at some point, I'm assuming. But right now, I don't know.
I'm terrible with track and field. I appreciate them. I don't know any of them. I'm like, oh, that's that guy. Okay, yeah, he's the first in the Olympics dude or what. I mean, I don't.
But when it's someone from COS,
yes,
that got my attention.
Of course.
I had no idea until I saw COS post about it. I'm like, he knows where he lived here.
I have to be behind him. No, but it's been so much fun, and something I didn't know, I just fell across it. Probably everybody else knew, and I didn't know. But there's something fun at the end in the final closing ceremonies.
Okay,
Tom Cruise is involved.
Oh,
you don't love Tom? Apparently not.
He comes with a lot of baggage. Let's just put it that way.
Always.
But, he does all his own stunts, so whatever he's doing, I'm sure there's no stuntman involved.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. It's actually, a lot of it's already been shot. There was news Tom was on the Hollywood sign a few weeks ago doing something, and everybody was like, what is he doing? Well, we know now. There's going to be an incredible, what are these called? When you tell somebody and they don't want to know sometimes?
Oh, spoiler alert.
This is a spoiler alert because if you're listening to this before the end of the Olympics, Tom Cruise is going to do an amazing actual bit from the top of the Stade de, what is it called? Stade de Paris? The big stadium they're in. They're going to do this he's going to do a whole thing, and then it's going to come down off the roof, and da-da-da-da, and then they're going to cut away to this stuff they already shot, and it's going to magically end up in Hollywood. It's going to be a cool little segment.
Okay, so we'll never know exactly how much of that he did on his own. I'm guessing what we know about him, most if not all, but if there's anything that really is life and limb stuff, he does have a couple stunt guys that look a little bit like him.
But let's be honest, Mission Impossible should have killed him by now. He did so many crazy stunts.
It might have. He may be cloned at this point, or maybe he's all Disney animatronics at this point too. Now, do you know, is this going to be kind of a way of promoting the next Mission Impossible? Because there was, this is where it gets a little interesting with Tom, and nothing against him, but put all of his eggs in the Mission Impossible basket as far as the two-part end of the run with this, and it didn't do very well at the box office. So it was going to be a part 1, part 2. They changed the name of part 2 now. It's still going to be the same movie, but they're trying to figure out a way to rebrand it. I'm wondering if this is a way to pre-promote that movie.
I don't know definitively, but that would make sense because why just do it randomly? I mean, Tom's great, but is he really that great? I don't think so. It's probably almost assuredly some kind of a stunt. And it's funny. I mean, yeah, Tom will always be the Mission Impossible guy. Just like I'm looking right at him, the gentleman that played Iron Man. Wonderful.
Robert Downey Jr.
Can you imagine? Do you think he sits at home and he's like, really? I'm going to be remembered for Iron Man. That's the role they're going to remember. He's such a good actor.
Well,
such a good. I know where you're going. What's coming? You're thinking
Doom.
That's it. I know it's out.
So,
the trailer's out.
Well, the trailer isn't, but at Comic-Con, what's interesting is we do these PSA shows every once in a while. We all kind of rotate who does them, half-hour shows. In fact, if you work for or have a nonprofit you would love us to talk with you about for a half hour, seriously, reach out to Mike O'Neill or myself. We would love to have you on one of those shows. I had Noah Whitaker on with me last Sunday. He's the Homeless Initiatives Programs Coordinator for Tulare County Health and Human Services, talking about Gavin Newsom's new mandate about closing homeless encampments. So wanted to have him on. He was actually at Comic-Con when the big reveal took place. They had this big symposium with all the Marvel movies and what's coming up next and what the new line of succession is for all the new movies. And they talked about Doomsday, the next Avengers movie, which is coming out in like 2 years, I believe, 2026. And they had all these guys dressed as Dr. Doom on the stage, and Robert Downey Jr. stepped up, mask on, took the mask off, and revealed he is going to be Dr. Doom in some alternate universe. He just so happens to look like Iron Man.
I know, just a coincidence. But I'm sure it'll be great. You know what? Him in anything is generally pretty awesome. And if it's a superhero movie, there's going to be great dark sarcasm attached, and I can't wait.
The storyline with this kind of writes itself, too, since he looks, well, it's the same actor, obviously, but he looks like Iron Man. They're going to have a hard time, I would imagine, the Avengers attacking him, because it's going to feel like we're attacking Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But it's not really Tony. It's not at all Tony Stark, because again, this is Victor Von Doom. If you know anything about the comics, he's one of the biggest bads in the Marvel Universe. Well, now for the first time, he's going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It'll be good. It'll be good if he's involved. He's just too good an actor for it not to be.
Speaking of Marvel movies, so my mom was in town a couple weeks ago. Have you ever seen the original Deadpool?
Now, you have to remember, I'm the DC guy. You're the Marvel guy.
Okay, so you have not?
No.
Then, okay. I went into it, and I saw it in the movie theaters when it came out, like months after it came out. I did not want to like it. I sat there with my arms crossed the first half hour, like, I'm going to hate this. This is not my type of movie. I walked out of it. It is not just superhero movies. It is like top 2 or 3 my favorite movies of all time.
I love it when that happens.
The original Deadpool. And maybe because I rolled in with no expectations at all, so anything would have impressed me. But it is R. It is a hard R for the violence. And there's one scene very early on in the movie with, you don't see anything, but there's enough sexual content that you realize what's going on.
Wow.
And the way they do it, you have to see it. It's shot very creatively. So my wife and I had a date night. My daughter was involved in a production with Tulare County, or TICO. They were doing Freaky Friday.
Okay.
So it was just my mom and my son at home. And my son, in his infinite wisdom at 15, suggested, Noni, that's what he calls my mom instead of grandma, let's watch Deadpool. My mom knows nothing about it. So, sure, no problem. So they watch it, including that scene with the... So I asked my son afterwards, I said, so do you think it was a good idea? Watching a rated R movie with your grandmother? He said, it was fine except for the one scene.
I was incredibly uncomfortable for 1.5 minutes.
I think we've actually talked about in previous podcasts watching movies like that with parents, and I think I mentioned I saw The Shining.
Oh man!
And the bathtub scene, which we didn't know that was coming. When I was dating my wife, with my mom, and I think my dad before he passed, he was there as well. We were watching 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh, miss.
And I thought the movie is hysterical. It is, but watching it with your mom and your girlfriend at the time, there are a couple scenes that aren't really appropriate.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things for our YouTube audiences where you're watching and everybody's in the living room. Dad's over here, mom's over here, you're here, and all of a sudden, all the kids see something and they go looking at the parents, wondering how they're going to react. And it's like, okay, nobody died, but yeah, they didn't like it. I didn't think they would. They didn't think they would.
Now, do you have a moment that stands out like that an embarrassing moment that happened with parents or grandparents watching you, and then you feel their eyes immediately on you to see how you're reacting to what you're seeing?
I can't think of any particular movie, but just anything. Remember, I'm the age I am. I was out of the house by the time. What year would it have been? I mean, late 70s, early 80s. There were no streaming services, so you couldn't stream movies from the theater. We would have been in the theater when that happened.
Well, there was HBO back then.
Yeah, but we didn't really have it.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was not until I was out on my own was that happening.
Were there any movies that you snuck to see?
Yes.
Oh, see, now do tell.
Definitely. In fact, there's two that I will always remember, and one of them is still one of my favorite movies on the planet, and it's an old 70s movie. I saw it at the fashion. This is how you know. I saw it at the Fashion Fair Mall in La Habra. Got on my bike. I lived in Fullerton, by the way, and rode all the way there. That's an hour.
Oh, wow.
And I decided, tied my bike up, and watched Airport, the original Airport. And it's just R-rated because of the content. One of the stewardesses is pregnant and got knocked up by one of the pilots. And
Okay.
He was married, and it's R-rated. But loved that movie. Saw that one. I was like, man, it's so good. And Billy Jack. My parents didn't want me to see the first Billy Jack movie, but I had to see the first Billy Jack movie. And even though it's probably one of the technically worst movies ever made, sorry, guys. I know you made it yourselves and financed it yourselves. But look at the. I mean, it did very, very well. And I enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it.
I remember we didn't have HBO either. We had cousins that lived in Ohio, and we were living in Illinois at the time. So you have Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and they were right on the Ohio-Indiana border. So we drove there for a visit. It was actually an old Army buddy of my dad's, but we just felt as though they were cousins because we had that type of relationship with them. So I called uncle and aunt, and they were all my cousins as far as I knew.
We have a lot like that on our side.
They had HBO. So they had it also not only upstairs but downstairs in their basement in what was the kids' playroom. So as the adults are upstairs watching whatever they're watching, one of my quote-unquote cousins decides to put on HBO, and we watched Porky's.
Oh, my. That was a big deal for its time.
Yeah, if you ever saw the original Porky's, it was every bit of everything from like National Lampoon's, you name it, times 10.
Yeah, and it's funny because they really didn't show that much other than
The shower scene.
Yeah.
And the hole in the tile. And
Yeah.
if you remember, that was the whole Porkeys. The O in Porky's was...
But for its time, that was that was a lot for then. I mean,
It reminded me, and I think it was a different director, producer,
Porky's.
writer of Animal House.
Yeah.
Which, again, was one of the original National Lampoon's movies. I think it just didn't have National Lampoon's Animal House, at least not to start, and then later it did. But it was that same kind of vein where there's a couple scenes here and there where you see a lot, but it's just very adult humor.
Yep. Interesting movies. God, I haven't thought about either one of those movies in a very long time.
Speaking of movies.
Now, that's the kind of movie that there's no way, just to make a point,
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch any of those movies again for any reason because why?
See, I would want to, especially Porky's. I have not seen that in 30 years at least. And that may have been the last time I saw it was then. And maybe subsequently I saw it again after that. But I was still a kid the last time I saw it. Well, I was probably too young to have seen it. I'd like to go back and watch it now thinking as though, wow, I really did get away with something because my mom and dad never knew I saw this.
Yep. And there's another one. Another movie I wouldn't watch anymore because I'd be like, this is so dumb. It's like watching a Cheech and Chong movie and not being loaded. It doesn't make any sense. Like, well, this is so dumb. Hot Tub Time Machine.
I've avoided seeing that for that purpose. It just does not seem like something I would have the least bit of interest in.
Well, it's not terribly intellectual, obviously. But in any event, not that they have to be, but no, it's just really dumb, and that's the point of it. But or any of the what were the nerd movies? All the nerd movies were all
Revenge of the Nerds,
hopelessly dumb with one of those scenes in every one.
Yeah, the first one again. That's another one I would like to go back and watch again. Completely different feel, but same time frame. Mannequin is one I would like to go back and see now. One I think I did see with our kids a couple of weeks ago. And getting ready for the next one, Beetlejuice. We saw Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that's a pretty good movie, though.
It is, but you realize just how limited the special effects were back then compared to what they can do now. Because it's all about life after death and the underworld and all of that, and they could have had so much more fun with it visibly with all the special effects if they had had the same technology. So with this one, it's going to be a lot better.
I'm going to bet you something, though. It's Burton again, right?
Yes.
I'm going to bet you that as an homage to the first one, the special effects they'll be technically better, but they're going to be they're going to look similar to reflect, because I think they're going to be reminiscent of some of the scenes and pictures from back then. So they might be more crystal clear and move faster, but I bet they look a lot like the old ones.
Yeah, it won't be Marvel special effects. Yeah. They'll in a sense, they'll dumb them down a little bit. So they kind of match that universe. Because
it's Beetlejuice. Okay, he didn't appear. Damn. I was hoping.
So, again, speaking of movies, I don't know if you saw this. Disney theme parks, because Disney, as far as a motion picture company, making money hand over fist this year. This year alone, I talked about this earlier this week, as a movie-making enterprise, they've cleared $3 billion.
Wow.
And basically on the back so far this year of Inside Out 2, which has made like $1.3 billion, and Deadpool and Wolverine, which, again, as we're talking, is probably very close to $1 billion worldwide. So that's almost the entire take out of two movies, $3 billion.
Crazy, right?
But the theme parks aren't doing all that well. People aren't showing up anymore, specifically in Orlando, too, and that's the one that draws everyone from across the globe, because that's Walt Disney World with Epcot and the water parks and everything else. I mean, the land mass that they have is just unheard of.
Well, Michael, why don't they raise the prices a little higher?
That's my point.
Why don't they? They're scaring people away. We're going in January.
And you've been saving for a year and a half, I bet.
We're working at it. We make pretty good money. And I'm like, how much? I mean, my daughter literally, and they make great money. They're a six-figure family. And Kelly, when I recently said, Dad, my grandson, by the way, his birthday's in January. We're going in January. We just bought our Disney tickets because you have to buy them in advance. And I go, yeah? I goes, that's all I could afford right now. We got those. We'll worry about the motel. We'll worry about hotel, rather, and we'll worry about everything else. We're saving for the gas down and everything else. And in the meantime, and food, and so. But we got the Disney tickets.
Yeah. And we live here, so the expense of flying obviously is taken off the table. Airfare down is one of the few things that is right now. But can Disneyland and Walt Disney World take a page out of McDonald's book? Because they tried the same thing. If you remember when fast food workers in California were suddenly making $20 an hour, they did the obligatory, if we have to pay our employees more, we're going to have to raise our prices more. And they did, and people stopped going to McDonald's.
Oh, it wasn't just McDonald's, my friend. We have a Jack in the Box on the corner by us, a brand new, beautiful Jack in the Box. You could fire a cannon through there for about a month. I mean, because the reason I know is my grandson and I used to roll him in a wagon over to it. We'd sit there, get a small fry, and roll home. Mm-hmm. We were the only one in there about 9 times of rolling over there and coming back. And this is at 4:30, 5 o'clock, when the drive-thru should be filling up pretty quick. People just didn't want to spend, by the way, then, $6 for large fries.
Now, have you been recently?
It's picking up again.
Now, it's picking up again because, at least I know McDonald's, they, again, increased their prices for the quote-unquote value meals, And now they actually have some that are priced at $5 again, which is where they were before the minimum wage went up. And lo and behold, people started showing up again.
In fact, they're all kind of fighting over it right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a quote-unquote value meal right now. And by the way, hats off to both Wendy's for really not raising their prices that much and being affordable right through it. And of all places, Red Robin wasn't too horribly more expensive, although a sit-down you have to pay a tip. But those didn't go through the roof, and we really appreciated that.
Although I will say that the large Frosty at Wendy's has shrunk a little bit. So shrinkflation has hit Wendy's a little bit, but inflation not as much.
Well, that's happened everywhere, Michael. I like to look. I used to buy my charcoal. You know, I barbecue every Sunday like it's my religion. And I always have two of the big bags. You know, the big giant bags that come wrapped up in cellophane. They're 20 pounds each, or should be, and they've the brand name, which won't come to me. I'm looking right at Kingsford. The Kingsford big double bags were 20, then they were 18, now they're 16.
Okay,
that's why I buy. Guess which ones I buy at Costco?
Yeah, the Kirkland.
Yeah, and you know what? They're just as good. So there's a little barbecue tip for you. They're 20s. A little cheaper than the other, and for the win.
So do you think Disney will ever start living off of the McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Jack in the Box philosophy, take a page from their book, and actually drop ticket prices at some point, or figure out a locals deal that makes sense? They did it when they were first coming back from COVID, at least with stays at the hotel, because people can finally stay at the hotel again. So they did a lot of locals discounts. Do you see them doing anything, or do you see them digging their heels in the sand and saying, no, we're Disney, eventually people will come back to us?
They're not a stupid company based on what's going on with the movie end, and I'm going to guess that one is maybe subsidizing the other in lieu of what's going on. I don't know that. I'm just guessing knowing business, but I also knowing business, if they're not self-reliant for long enough, they'll dig a hole they can't get out of. It's a business, after all.
Yeah, and then they're going to have to keep borrowing a little bit from the movie franchises to start, keeping things going with the parks. And there's a big expansion at Disneyland that they're talking about that they finally got approval on. So there's a couple parking lots that are suddenly going to be gone, and they're going to be building in there.
But not if they're not open. I mean, if they can't sustain, all those plans are going to be out the window, and it's just going to be, God, how do we stay alive?
Now, when was the last time you went to Disneyland?
Michael, I'm embarrassed to tell you. It's been decades. The last time I was at Disneyland, the new park, which is called...
Oh, California Adventure.
California Adventure was the parking lot that I parked in.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, I know that. And the irony of that is I'm remarried to my wife of 32 years, but my first daughter, the daughter from my first marriage, she and we and her mother went there every year for like 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, I've been to Disneyland. I grew up in Anaheim. I've been thrown out of Disneyland more than most people have been. And as a kid, not as an adult, just for the record. But, we used to ride our bikes over there in 6th grade, tie it up, $350 to get in, Mike. Oh. $350 because it was ticket books back then.
It's $350 now, too, but $350.
$150. But, if they want to sustain, it's going to have to be something that people can afford. Disneyland can't just be for the rich. It was supposed to be for kids and for those that are young at heart.
Well, it's still for kids. Hollywood kids that are in movies. Those are the only ones that can afford it at this point.
Disneyland's too big to have that small an attraction.
And I hope they come around. Although I will tell you, since it's been that long since you've been, you will notice Tomorrowland has not changed a bit since then.
What's funny is even back when, and you can guess when that was in the, what would it have been then? Probably the early 2000s or 90s last time I went. It was old then, Mike. It wasn't Tomorrowland then. It was Yesterdayland. And, when the Tomorrowland Terrace comes out of the ground with the band in it, it's still cool, but it's ancient looking now. It looks like, you can almost... it almost sounds like it's having a hard time. But Yeah, there's nothing really very space age in there. That would be the first land it would be wise for them to update. I mean, they spent so much money on the new park, and there's so much space age over there.
Yep.
There's nothing space age in Tomorrowland. It's almost like they intend to move forward over there and just kind of ramp down over there.
I just wish, and they've done this before, years ago when they revamped Tomorrowland, shut the whole land down for a year, 2 years, whatever, and change the name of it, because calling it Tomorrowland, you're already putting a date on it. It's, say they open in 2025, or say they open in 2030. It's going to be 2030's vision of the future. At some point, the future will be here, and it will either have become that or not, and then you're going to have to change it again. So,
But what do you call it? They didn't brand it anything other than in the future. They didn't say, 2060 land or
maybe Space Land, if they want to kind of keep, because most of the stuff is here is kind of space themed. So have a NASA exhibit, so that way you can talk about the past, present, and future without talking about just the whole land being, this is Tomorrowland,
or
until it's not.
Or like Spaceport West or something, because it's the Western Disney. That's kind of, I like that.
See, why don't they
I'm
just
gonna
ask
call them
us
up
all
and
these
ask them.
things? Well, we've got all the answers if anyone asks us.
And we're very humble. Very humble.
So when you go, well, we'll have to throw back on with another podcast and talk specifically about all the changes that you remember. And I'm really interested when you go to find out how much of it looks exactly the way you remember it looking.
I'm guessing almost none of it, to be honest, Mike. The only thing I'll be ticked off if it's gone, first thing I'm going to do when I got onto Main Street, halfway down there's the marketplace or whatever it is, the old marketplace, if it's still there. I'm going to go in and get my big, fat, giant pickle that I get every time I go there.
Okay.
And if that's gone, I'm going to be like, hey, I planned this, and, well, it's been 20 years. Okay.
I'm sure it's still there, but now it has Mickey Mouse ears on it.
Oh,
because they brand everything.
They really do. Boy, you pay for that.
You pay a lot for those foam ears on a pickle.